Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to the Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Great episode on tap, man. Sometimes to appreciate the present, you need to know a little bit about your past. And I think this is the kind of episode that kind of gets us geeked up and ready for what is sure to be an exciting upcoming NBA final regular season run and playoff scenario. Because I think, and my man Shaw, who's going to jump on right now and probably speak to it a little bit better than I can. Hey, man, for me to be able to appreciate the allure, the glamour, the glitz, the fever of NBA playoff basketball, it's always great to have a story, a backstory, the origins, you know what I mean? To figure out where some of these guys came from and how they came about. And this episode, I think, can help speak to that for those that are truly interested on why the game of basketball is as popular a sport as it is, and why the culture of basketball is always an interesting phenomenon to continue to absorb and learn.
Yeah, I think it's a great place to pick up where we will be going on this week's episode. Thanks to Rock Nation and Prime Video. Amazon will be discussing, tales of yesteryear, right? And tales of today, as a lot of great players have come up through the McDonald's All-American game. So we have some great access and a long time coming for the FaceTime with the Baseline here with some two great, amazing filmmakers here that I'll let you go ahead and let the folks know what we got popping up here in the next few minutes.
Absolutely, man. So this week's episode, we're going to do a little FaceTime with the Baseline with two visionaries, Corey Colvin and Carlton Sabbs. They are the visionaries behind the Prime Video documentary Meal Ticket, which is really an excellent way, a segue for us to better understand where these great players that we follow and we watch and awe, where it all starts, where it all comes from, where's their source of inspiration. They basically have put together this masterpiece of filmmaking for us to better understand the history and the richness of the McDonald's All-American game. And, again, man, we're just excited to have these guys on, to have the opportunity to chop it up with them and kind of sit behind their brain and figure out like how they were able to piece together this masterpiece. So they'll be joining us in a few moments. And as always, we appreciate you and yours for hopping on board with us. Be sure to get at my man Shaw at D Warren Shaw. You can get at me at Game Face Lee, the show's Twitter handle, NBA Baseline. Available on all the major platforms. You know where to find us. You can go to www.thebaselinenba.com. To not only check this episode out, but also all the other episodes we'd like to be rolling out for your listening pleasure. And if you're seeing us on the YouTube channel, we'd like to say hello to you and yours. And if you catch that blue and white logo down in the lower part of the screen, that means we are down with the 19 Media Group family. 19 Media Group be running these content streets. So be sure to go to www.19mediagroup.com to not only check us, but also the great family of content creators that are a part of the 19 Media Group family. Coming up, Shaw and I are going to do a little FaceTime with the Baseline with the directors of Meal Ticket. But before we do that, we got to let you know this episode of the Baseline NBA podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. The playoff push is heating up and tournament hoops are here. And there's no better way to cash in on the high-flying hoops action than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. Every bucket, every dime, and every win means more when you're playing on Prize Picks. With their brand new Team Picks market, you can now pick game winners, spreads, and totals on top of the player picks you already know. So cash in if you're right and during all the clutch bucket, slam dunks, and Cinderellas this spring with Team Picks on Prize Picks. You can mix and match sports or leagues, and why not get into a little March Madness action with some of your NBA projections? Whether it's battling for playoff seeding or tournament hoops, you can make all of your picks right there on Prize Picks. We love making team picks, and Prize Picks can be also an excellent way for you to figure out who may win the league, who's the MVP, and selections of other awards. It's just another way for you to pick the sports you love, all on Prize Picks. So what are you waiting for? Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup, that's code CLNS. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Coming up, Shaw and I sit down with the visionaries, Corey Colvin and Carlton Sabbs. Don't go anywhere. Time now to do a little FaceTime with the Baseline, Callie Warren Shaw, and we are so excited to have two visionaries on board with us this week. to talk about this magnificent documentary that follows a tried and true game, but also a phenomenon that has been baked into the basketball culture since 1977. We have with us directors Corey Colvin and Carlton Sabbs. And if you don't know what these guys have helped put together, they've put together a masterpiece called Meal Ticket, which follows the history of the McDonald's All-American Games, the annual basketball exhibition of next generation talent that's catapulted high school seniors into the NBA and WNBA, respectively. Corey and Carlton, thank you so much for joining us this week, man. We are so excited to talk to you about what you have been able to put together and really help elevate the conversation about why the McDonald's All-American Game is really a cornerstone piece to the culture of basketball.
Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
So the first thing I want to get into, and I'll start with you, Corey, because you kind of highlighted this before we jumped on here, man. You and Carlton have history, right? And I can just say this with confidence, especially after having an opportunity to watch this documentary. That history and that well-being, that partnership of where you guys come from and your upbringing and everything was really put throughout this whole, direction of our understanding of what the McDonald's All-American is, not just the history, but, so a part of you has definitely in there. So I want you guys to kind of talk about, your brotherhood and how that had an important impact on you putting together this documentary.
No, for sure. Like I was saying, we're both Southside Chicago kids. Grew up playing sports at a young age, started at a young age. And then once we got to high school, we wound up not knowing, of course, at the time, but we were at like our rival high schools in the city. Like I'm at De La Salle, Carlton's at Mount Carmel. Probably competed a bunch of times on the field, on the courts. And we, as we got into our working world, our working ages, we met at a radio station on the south side of Chicago, WVON, and we kind of like just clicked. We had that bond, the similarities, the being fans of art, music, culture, things like that, and we started hanging out. And then over time, we realized that like, oh wait, we're supposed to be rivals, but it's like, well, let's put that past us. Let's just keep working. Let's grow together. Let's use our common goal of what we want to get accomplished in life. Like let's put our energy towards those things. And we started our production company. We started making all this cool content for brands, and we got to a point. Fast forward a bunch of years later, we meet Cootie and Chike. And they've kind of done the same thing in their career, took a liking to us, took us under their wings, and we were offered this opportunity to be able to direct this film about the history of the McDonald's game.
Well, I will say this, and I'll pass this one to you, Carlton. I think the it's kind of an ode to Chicago since the game started there, right? And all being Chicago natives, if you will. How long was this process of making Meal Ticket? Because I've spoken to a few directors and producers in my time, and sometimes it is a true labor of love, to get a documentary done, distributed, in the whole nine. How long did it all take you to kind of get the show popping?
Oh man, absolutely. It is a labor of love for sure. You're talking about 4 years that it took us to get this over the finish line, and especially being first-time long-form feature-length directors, working with big brands, we went through the gauntlet to get this done, but it just is a testament to the work ethic of Corey and I, our chemistry, the projects we've done prior kind of prepared us for this opportunity. And then I think our experiences through life and coming from Chicago got us, we were born to tell this story. And Cootie and Chike knew it when they met us that, they wanted to hand the torch to us for this opportunity because they saw themselves when they, creative Benji on 30 for 30 back in the day. Like, yo, this is you guys Benji, man. Like, this is your opportunity, and you all get it. So we just hit the ground running, and on and made the project. And for the record, we have Chicago. We claim a lot of stuff. Okay, we claim everything. People get annoyed with us. We have the most McDonald games that were like aired there. There were the most games performed were in Chicago, but DC is technically the Chicago. I mean the inventors of the McDonald's game from the founder. So we won't take that from them, but we have. Yeah, but Chicago, we're the best. But we have the most McDonald's All-Americans per capita, though. So that's we definitely owning that, though, for sure.
I know that's a tough admission, Carlton. I get it. I understand, and DC will not be mad at you for that. You know what I'm saying? This day and age, they're just very, very happy that, you know what I'm saying, that they're surrounded. They're part of something that's great that's going on.
Oh, you ain't got to go there, my guy. You ain't have to go there.
They got a little bit of work to. Hey, listen. Sometimes you need a blueprint. And in order for that blueprint to be understood, in order for you to build, you know what I'm saying, that Aston Martin, you gotta understand the history, which I think is why it's so needed that we have, a documentary as such as that you and Corey have been able to put together. What I was fascinated by this is the fact that I don't think a lot of people, unless you are in, the sports space or the basketball space, really understood the meaning of what the McDonald's All-American game was. I mean, for a lot of kids that weren't involved in sports, that's like McKnight Achievers, back in the day, right? And even that doesn't have the same weight as saying you are a McDonald All-American. So I found it fascinating that you were able to tell the story and you were able to provide that history, but it was meaningful for each and every single kid in different regions as to what that meant to be. And I wanted to get your perspective, Carlton. I'll start with you. I wanted to get your perspective about, why was it important to not just only feature, the creme de la creme? Like, it was great you had, you get Michael Jordan on there, but I thought it was equally great that you were able to get people who from different regions had represented a style and a class of basketball, and why it mattered for them to be a part of something like this, for them to really kind of tell their story about being a part of the McDonald American experience.
Yeah. When I think about when Corey and I were really, crafting the story and figuring out how we wanted to go, we wanted it to be authentic, right? And something that resonated with us with filming the game in 2022 and hitting the ground and filming it. It was like, okay, man, it's like you're saying, man, these kids are pulling up and they're representing where they're from, their hometown, their region. It's a big deal, right? So you're not just representing Derek Lively at the game. You represent Pennsylvania, your hometown, like where you're from. When Glenn Robinson pulled up, he was representing Gary, Indiana. And everybody has a different style. And at that time, the players you're a legend in high school. This is before we know what Hall of Famer you become, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the McDonald's game shows and solidifies that you were one of them ones, right? You are a true Hall of Famer of high school basketball at the least, right? So we wanted to show that. We wanted to have an unbiased in that, in the storytelling, right? God Shamgod, I don't know his NBA career of like how impeccable it is, but his lore in New York and the street ball and high school basketball and what he meant with him and Stephon Marbury both being able to make it to the McDonald's game is a feat, and to this day, he loves it. It's one of his, favorite moments. And to Candace Parker dunking at the game is one of her favorite moments. So we just wanted to, and it's a tough task, right? This is 45 plus years of a game, of footage, of stories, personal stories that we're finding a way to make work in 96 minutes. But I'm glad that it landed. You know, I'm glad that for folks that have watched it so far, they feel like we've done a solid job of doing that. Because I mean, this could easily be a series, man, from the stories that we heard. Easily.
Yeah. There was a lot of meat on the bone there for sure, Carlton. And so, Corey, I'm going to pass the rock to you, because even talking about how the film was done, I noticed that there was like a tint in the film, like, so to speak, right? Like, so like vintage, that's the word I want to look like. There are shots where it was more vintage than it was more kind of modern, so to speak. So did you all have creative control in a sense to kind of make those decisions? Was any of that influenced by like Rock Nation's input or Prime's input, so to speak, or was that all you? Because I thought it was a nice touch, especially when we're going back way back into the set. Oh, way back. I shouldn't say that. But way back for some people. But I think, again, I thought it was a nice creative decision. So was that all you, or was that kind of influenced by some of the production company and distributors in any way?
No, so, you know, shout out to the companies that we worked with to help us produce it. They allowed Carlton and I to like be ourselves. And when we first started to brainstorm, you know, what we thought the story arc could be and what it could look like visually, Carlton and I, we just connected on, we're telling the story of different eras, you know, different decades of basketball, where we're starting in the 70s, we go to the 80s, the 90s, the 10s, to the current day. And so visually, we just had the idea of, let's try to tap in and incorporate as much of those type of looks and visual feels as possible, you know. So it's like when we're in the 70s and we know we're showing this 70s archival footage, and we get to the 80s, we really try to really try to get the cameras that people were using back then, you know. Like we were having conversations about, we wanted to incorporate mixed media for sure. So, you know, Carlton will be out there filming with, you know, his 16 millimeter camera. You know, I'm pulling up with the VHS. We incorporated, you know, some handy cam in there, all the way to kind of like what you see the kids using now, you know, cell phones. So it's a mixture of your traditional day and age cinema cameras, you know, Hollywood standard cameras, but we wanted to purposely go out there and give fans that mixed media feel, so that they could, you know, tap in and really feel what basketball looked and felt like in those time periods that we were touching on.
Corey, Colvin, Carlton, Sabbs joining us here on the baseline. The visionary exclusive meal ticket, which covers the McDonald's All-American game and the culture and the history behind it. You know, Carlton, here's something that I found just absolutely fast. I think you guys did such an excellent job, you know, with so much of the storytelling, because like to what Shaw was talking about, you could have made, this could have been a series. This could have been a series. One of the things that I found so fascinating is, if you are somebody who really did not understand what the McDonald's All-American game was supposed to be and what it looked like, not only did you get behind the scenes, which I thought was fabulous, but you also got to see the true emotion of the athlete and what that meant when their name was being called, and what that experience is like. It's kind of like you know, if you were a kid and you were participating in the science fair, and, you know, all of a sudden you find out that you're, you know, top place winner or second place winner. I don't think people who are not involved in sports as much really understood what that experience is supposed to be like for a person who puts their blood, sweat, and tears into a sport that, regardless of whether or not they see themselves playing in the NBA or WNBA, it's just that elevated level of getting to a place where you're being recognized as the elite of the elite. And to capture that, I think, was awesome, because I think we can apply that to our every single day. you know, whether it's school, whether it's work in our careers, like being put in this space where you are now being a POV kind of like seeing it. I just thought was fascinating. And how much of that emphasis was it needed for you to guys to say, yeah, we have to make sure we want this in there for all of, especially for the ones that you covered for the 2022 class of 2022. How much was the emphasis about saying we really want to see what they see and what they feel so that people can get a better understanding of what this means for them?
Man, you know, I think when we first got the opportunity to tell a story and it was told to us, you know, the first thing initially you're thinking like, oh man, we can't wait till we, you know, get in front of Carmelo and, you know, the legends and Derrick Rose. But by the grace of God, man, the fact that we were thrown like, you know, D-Day Vietnam right into the 2022 game and just dropped in there, had our cameras, you know, we're a week of prep work of knowing what's going on. We don't really know these players, you know, the game has been gone for a minute. They even told us the ranking was kind of scrambled because of, you know, COVID lingering. So it wasn't even true as far as the ranking. So we're just like, man, it was so fresh. And I think by us being there, we got to learn what it was to be a McDonald's All-American. So we're like, you know, our lens and our experience and our interviews are like, wow, this means a lot to these players. It's not just an all-star game. You know, this is the culmination of all of the work leading up to this point in this kid's life and everything that it means to them. And because it's so fresh, you know, soon as we got through our list of questions, when we got to sacrifice, like as soon as we asked them about sacrifice, you know, tears building. The emotion is pouring because they're living real time what their family has done and what their friends, you know, they know the amount of hours they spent practicing. And it's not just talent. It's not just talent. It's a campaign completely. Everybody has to get involved to get to that level. And you got to, and your grades have to be a certain level as well to make the McDonald's game. Like it's a lot there. So we learned with a crash course of being there in 2022. And I think that helped us set the tone. And I think when we got back talking to the EPs, you know, we had to really push it because they were like, nah, you want to film Carmelo, you know, you want to get the legends. Like we're like, yeah, but the kids give us this hoop dreams feeling a little bit, you know, like the kids give us something where, you know, we film them now. You don't know what Flaw J. Johnson's going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you know, like, and look at it. The next year she won a national championship with Angel Reese. It was like, it was a perfect, it drove us. And I think that stuff happening in real time with Derek Lively's success with the Dallas Mavericks helped us to be able to craft that story that way. It wasn't straightforward, you know, but once they got to see like, okay, yeah, this is really cool. These players, we don't know them, but we're getting a glimpse into what it means to be a McDonald's All-American. What's that journey like? It's not just an all-star game. You're trying to, you know, you want to show the world for real, like you belong, you know, even like Bronny, when we put him in 2023, Bronny, he wanted to show he belonged.
That Bronny clip was wild though, because you can even see how stuff changes. The media lady comes in and she's like, "Oh, he's not doing interviews right now." I was like, "Yo, this is what we on." So I mean, I understand he's Bronny James, no doubt, but you understand, like he was willing to kind of do it, but we're also in a different time in how athletes are covered and what that game may even mean for them. Like that wasn't happening in the 70s. You know what I mean?
And I'll let Corey speak to that because he was very pivotal in making that happen. But like I say too, is social media for sure has changed a lot for the landscape of the McDonald's game, right? Where the players didn't used to know each other. And that's what we knew the McDonald's game as, like Street Smith. And you find out through the, you know, almanacs and stuff. But I think it was important for us to get there on the ground and see like, oh, it still matters to these players. Yeah. You know, despite what pop culture is saying, you know, because there's competition with the Jordan Classic. I think is it Iverson had a game. The kids care about the McDonald's game because all the legends that came before them that participated. But Bronny wanted to carry that torch. genuinely what was a part of his legacy, and showing it like it was not, my dad is one thing, but I'm here for myself and I'm official. But Corey, you have to share a little bit of
yeah. So it was that 2023 game. This was kind of like right after we got to deal with Amazon. Before we got to deal with Amazon, we had put together our pitch tape and our pitch deck, where we used archival footage and what we shot in 2022. And so we get the deal with Amazon, and the EP that we're working with, big basketball fan, grew up loving the McDonald's All-American game. He was like, you guys got to go back. Like, you got to go back and get some 2023 footage, like this is going to be the Bronny year. This is the Juju Watkins year. And Carlton and I are like, all right, well, let's go do it. Let's go get this. And then immediately when we get there, like to your point, just how fast the game evolved. It was like when we filmed with the class of 2022, those 17 and 18-year-olds, they were there trying to figure out, NIL, and they were trying to figure out, okay, can I have an agent? Do I need representation? Is my mom or dad good enough? So a lot of times we're getting them to sign release forms to be a part of the documentary. They're like, oh, let me give it to my mom, but then boom, just fast forward to the year 23, we get there and the kid, they got to figure it out. They're pulling up, they got Nike deals, Adidas deals.
They understood the assignment.
They understood the assignment. They got agents, they rep, they manage everything across the board, right? So immediately we're there really with the mindset of like, yo, we got to get Bronny, because one of the cool things that we wanted to do with the story too, that got left on the cutting room floor, was you started to see a lot of like the lineage story, a lot of like dads and even moms that played in the game are now at that point where their kids are being selected to the game. So we wanted to kind of like highlight a true section of the film for that. We cut it for time purposes, but let's go get this interview with Bronny. But of course we get there, and who is not doing any press, who's not doing any media. And of course it's not coming from him. It's coming from the people who are around him. Are like, Bronny's not doing any interviews. You guys can talk to every other kid that's here except Bronny. And, with Carlton and I being the documentaries that we are, we're like, yo, what's the Denzel clips? Like, yo, we leaving with something.
around the way.
We gonna leave with something. So I remember we sitting in the gym. Carlton's he's roaming around getting some dope footage with some of the camera crew, and I'm sitting on the bench in the gym next to one of the producers on the film, and we get a warning again, just a reminder, no Bronny, blah blah blah, all of that. And they walk by, and I remember looking over at the producer, and I'm like, I'm still getting the interview, and he said, absolutely. So that moment comes. They're in between drills, waiting to rotate from one court to the next. And I'm like, okay, I'm going now. So I get up, I go hustle over there, I grab one of our cameras, and I just start talking to him. And immediately, like, he's excited about it. He wants to do it, And I have been talking to Bronny all week. We have been, just saying little quick things here and there so he could get familiar with me. So when the time was right, we could swoop in and get it. And I remember, like, okay, now the time's right. We get this interview, and even the kids, even the other teammates, they kind of blew the spot up a little bit too, because they started to look and say like, whoa, Bronny's doing an interview? What is this about? And they started to get like that little cipher, little crowd around. And I maybe got 3 questions in, and then boom, here comes somebody from, I think Clutch comes in. Clutch comes in and like, excuse me, he's not doing any interviews. And, and what you can hear when Bronny's walking away, though, Bronny's like, yo, I'm cool. Like, I got this. Like, they can use that, But again, and it's no no slight to Stephanie, who that rep was, but she's just doing her job, you know. But that's the error that you see that the game is in now, with the transition of basically amateur basketball. Like it's all kind of like professional now, you know. Money's there involved, and representation is there for these players, so you just run into it. But it couldn't have worked out better, because like once Carlton got that footage and was just like, oh, this is exactly what we need to show as like how the game is transitioning. So
you guys did that expertly, because I remember like there's a few moments where, you know, I'm watching, I was like, what happened there? I mean, rewind and whatever, and I was like, oh, that's appropriate. And I've had similar experiences with, you know, different athletes and representation. Like if you're in the scrum or whatever, and certain people just like, hey, because they're trying to protect. And I think we all get it. But kudos to you for being, you know, stick-to-itive and kind of getting that situation done. One thing I do want to touch on too, because I know we're running short on time, is that any documentary, like it's supposed to be, well, at least for me, I like a documentary that's enjoyable to watch, but also like teaches me something, right, that I don't know. And it's not just like kind of this linear regurgitation of stuff that I could have just looked up online, so to speak. So one thing that really caught me, and, you know, Corey, I'll kind of stick with you on this as well too, and then Carlton, jump in if you have any thoughts, was it was kind of like real fast to me, but I didn't know that. I think it was it Billups, KG, Pierce, like they were thinking about going to Michigan and starting another Fab Five. I had never heard that in my life. And I know KG didn't pass the test. He ended up going straight to school, and then only Tractor Trailer's only one of that group who ended up going to Michigan, right? But KG went straight from Farragut to the league. That was so, it was like monumental to me, because what that could have did for Michigan ultimately. Like, do you have more, I guess, anecdotes like that, or was that something that you learned there by filming the documentary?
Yeah, I think that like the film, we put a lot of those in the film, a lot of those like anecdotes, never heard before stories. But that one right there is one of my faves, you know. Like when we're doing that interview and Chauncey starts to tell us about, we were going to go and recreate the Fab Five, you know, with Stephon Marbury and Paul Pierce and Garnett, and like it would have been crazy. Like it would have been like what they had lost in the games, like, you know, like what would the history have really told if something like that happened, you know. But either way, when you get the transition with Garnett deciding that he's going to enter the draft, and even how that opened up the door and changed history for basketball, and the run that you get on talented players coming out of high school, that one right there for sure is one of my faves. And then, you know, I would go probably to the Paul Pierce, Michael Jordan scoring record, you know, kind of story, you know.
And if you know P, you know, like that's what matters.
It was incredible. You know what's crazy too on the cutting room floor is that when we filmed Tyson Chandler, I just remembered this. Like he told us that they were trying to create the Fab Five as well. So so they were. It was like once that started with Jalen and them, it just created this freshman super team idea that was cemented in kids' heads. And Tyson Chandler said that DeJuan Wagner was recruiting them. So they were in 01 and they were all trying to come together, and he was saying to different players, but it just showed him like, wow. So we heard him say that and we're like, look at that. Like, it's these things that started the McDonald's game that become the precursor and the first, you know, for basketball culture. And it starts there. And I think it ended up in that 95. I think Lewis Bullock, he didn't become major, but he went to Michigan too from 95. So it was like a lot of players that was getting ready to go to Michigan if KG had decided to go. But yeah, man, incredible story. Paul Pierce coming in with the record. We had no idea. Like he literally kicked in the door of our interview set and was like, y'all watch the tape? Y'all watch the tape?
That's me. And even the anecdote about the jerseys, like I didn't recognize that as well too. Like, you know, I mean, people have the same jerseys because somebody stole the jerseys. So people's like, yo, that's wild stuff, man.
Wild stuff, man. So that's beautiful. There's the beauty in documentary storytelling where you go in with one idea and the discovery phase just shows you more beauty. So yeah, great experience, man.
I thought it was just remarkable as well too. Like just as equally as we were talking about, the formation of the Fab Five 2.0 and possible 3.0 was the everyone following suit to what Kevin Garnett did, and with him really being the catalyst for high school athletes to really seriously consider moving their game to the NBA automatically and not, participating in collegiate sports. There's one last question I wanted to ask you guys, as it pertains to the history. Obviously there was clearly pushback on the idea of even the McDonald's All-American game even happening. And, you guys eloquently kind of helped, kind of formulate that storyline around that. And we've seen how this has evolved, with the way that the game has been structured, with how the athletes come together and how it correlates to either collegiate basketball and the way that they operate in their rules, and also in the NBA. With your interviews and those that you've spoken with, did you get that sense that it's still that constant, tug and pull situation for them to maintain the relevancy of such an important game and important experience, while still making sure that these kids are not being compromised because of the ever-changing rules that are taking place between the NBA and the NCAA?
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because the initial like curb appeal to some people that don't know what the McDonald's game is, they're immediately thinking of this brand, the McDonald's. Oh, McDonald's is this propaganda. And that was far from what this film is and what this story, what it means to basketball culture as far as what the McDonald's game is, and how we were, crafting this story in parallel of like, who is where's the conflict lie that exists. We could have gone even more and unraveled what McDonald's was doing behind the scenes, but it was so unnecessary, to the point where the true like Magneto in the story to Professor X was the NCAA. And the NCAA constantly made it tough for the McDonald's game to exist, and for it to, we learned that, right? We sat down with Tracy McGrady, and Tracy McGrady he wanted to tell his story of why I didn't show up to the McDonald's game. I made it, but I didn't want to show up because I wanted to make a point that, I'm the number one player in the country, and I'm asking for you to fly my parents out to the game in 1997. And McDonald's refused. And it just felt like, for Tracy, like, see, y'all just trying to benefit off of, my popularity and everything. But
All the while, we were actually protecting them.
They were protecting them from eligibility and everything.
Because they don't know that your intent is that you're going to go straight to the NBA. And if you do go to the NCAA, you could already be pretty much blackballed, or you could already find yourself behind the 8-ball, given the situation, the circumstance, which wouldn't be a good look for the McDonald's All-American game itself too, because as a brand, that is a premier brand with their name on it. So a whole lot of ramifications that go into it. And, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on that, Carlton, but it's fascinating, because to me, throughout this documentary, part of that is this interpretation that is just only about the branding, but there's so much more behind that. It's very nuanced. And I think now people really begin to understand that there's a lot of working parts in it, and everybody's got to be on the same page to make sure it's done right. Because even at the end of the day, if the intent is to protect the athletes themselves are not privy and involved with the legalities that take place and who they're interacting and dealing with on a day-to-day basis, even just for this one game or this one experience.
Right. And also too, because the game was created off of an American dream. It wasn't built on the brand conglomerate energy. Like the McDonald's All-American game started from Bob Gagan literally just being a fan of basketball, a sports promoter. He wasn't in it for money. He literally just wanted to start a game of seeing, like, it would be cool to see DC go against the world on some cocky stuff, really. Mm-hmm. That's what he did. And then he was like, wow, okay, maybe we'll do the world versus America versus America. So the best from this side of the region of the country and the best from this side of the country. And it was a brilliant thing. And Sonny Vaccaro didn't do that yet with Dapper Dan. And, you know, Bob Gagan did. So it starts from that as something that's genuine. McDonald's is a great partner to come on board because it was another basketball fan at McDonald's in DC who was like, I want to sponsor it, you know? So it really came from American Dream kind of foundation. It wasn't like this just like, oh, we're going to just exploit high school basketball. And you see it to this day when Corey and I are on the ground, like they're protecting the kids. It's all about the integrity of the kids. This is nothing for McDonald's. Like when people may think like this is McDonald's breaks even, I think, at this game. You know, this is just, you know, it's a charitable event.
Charity. Yeah.
It's for charity. This is for the culture. And I think I hope people really get a chance to watch it to see like this is, as much as you may hate McDonald's or whatever as a big brand corporation, this was something cool that they did that they helped to exist for 50 years now, right? 49 to 50 years in basketball, and they're keeping it going, and they haven't let it stop. And it's meant a lot to these kids, man. So it's cool to see that it still exists.
Yeah, and Carlton, you remember that rule? There was even like, as far as they go to like protect the kids, they even had like this rule where every player that's selected to the McDonald's All-American game needs to be able to get the same amount of like attention from press and media. Yeah. You know, so they make it where they don't even want kids to be singled out and made to feel like they're not as special as everybody else. And so for us doing the documentary, we kind of had to tell McDonald's, like, unfortunately, we're not going to talk to everybody. You know, like we can only put our cameras in so many places at so many times. And for the story that we're trying to tell, it makes sense for us to focus on these players. And that took some, like, you know, that took some understanding from them to just be like, okay, we're going to do something different that we never really do with like equal opportunity.
And we still put we spread the lens around though, because we wanted to at least play ball with them on the ground, which helped us because, like I said, we don't know, we're not scouts, you know, and I'm so glad we spread the lens around because people that you thought there was going to be this, then it's like, oh, Brandon Miller turns into a dog, or Keontae George is averaging like 25 points a game now. Like that dude is like, you just don't know who's going to be who. And that's the beauty of being there, right? You don't know who's going to be the next Dwayne Wade, man. So, yeah.
Before we wrap, I'm going to really quick points. One, there was a Sebastian Telfair anecdote in there too, because he played at the game and just kind of, he did the thing that he needed to do as a point guard. And, you know, Corey and us, we're talking offline about raising our kids and what it means to just play the game the right way. Telfair was somebody who was often seen as kind of maybe showboatish, so to speak. And in that game, he's like, listen, I'm just going to be a distributor. Like this is my claim to fame. And I really appreciated that even being shown because it put a different light on Telfair, I think, as well, too. Has also got some social media stuff kind of going on now as well, too. But the last two things I really wanted to say, very important that you guys highlighted the introduction, you know, of the women's game and that being included. And also the fact that the Ronald McDonald House and that charity and the community aspect as well, too. Because I think some of those players are being shown that aspect of life maybe for the first time in their level of celebrity. So I guess for my last question, if you will, if you'd both kind of just speak on that aspect, the women's aspect, making sure that was being shown, then also the charity aspect of going to the Ronald McDonald House. And Corey, why don't we start with you on that one?
No, for sure. I think with the women's game, I think it was great that it happened, you know, and for Bob, you know, to have that vision to do it and see that the popularity of what the WNBA had did, you know, with women hoops, and then getting to the point where it's just like, man, maybe we should start showcasing them at the high school level. You know, I think it was genius. And for me personally, working on this film, it helped me become like a big women's basketball fan. Like I love the women's game more than I did before I started working on the film. I think it's just something about seeing how much harder they have to go to get to damn near the same point or close as possible with the guys. You know, it's like they can't go to school for 1 year. They got to put in multiple years. And the fact that they're out there playing for multiple years, they're putting themselves at risk for more opportunities of injury before they even get a chance to go get the bag, you know? Just overall, what the women go through to be able to demand as much close as possible attention to what the men's game is. Take my hat off to it. And you know, with the charity aspect of it, like you said, it's like a lot of these guys who are getting ready to sign checks for, you know, commas, you know, like they're about to get bank. You know, that might be their last chance that they actually get a chance to do some good humanitarian work and see what life is like on the other side, and, you know, just really have a clear understanding of how blessed and fortunate they are to have the skill set and the opportunities that they have. So I think the game continuing to spotlight that, and every city that the game is played in, they take the classes to those Ronald McDonald houses so they can spend time with the kids and do things like that. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. I mean, all of the players who we talk to, no matter what generation, the Ronald McDonald House really landed for them, of that experience being a part of, you know, the McDonald's game. And it was really cool to see. Like, we talked to Paul Pierce. He's like, man, that's one of my favorite moments, going to the Ronald McDonald House. And, you know, it's reminder, like, that keeps things in perspective. I think it's almost like you got all this love and you get attention, media's there, and then you go to Ronald McDonald House, and it just keeps that perspective before the game, you know. So they know what this means, you know, for the world, for their family, for their city. And so I love to hear, like, multiple generations that really respected that experience. And then for the women's game, of course, like, I'm glad that we got to show in the film another precursor moment to now looking at women's basketball, and they've got more money available for the minimum, which is cool. And that does great things for the players that we put our lens on, with Flau'jae and Janiyah Barker, which are now seniors getting ready to enter the draft for next year. It's beautiful. We're super happy. But Simone Augustus had to also, you know, share the pain, like the struggle, the pain. Like, there's no off season, you know, for women's basketball after, you know, you get beyond. Like, she was talking about Tyrus Thomas too, like the player that she went to school with, who, like, he leaves the McDonald's game, he's going to get money, you know, and she is getting ready, like, oh, well, you know, I got a dream, you know, I was on the front of Sports Illustrated and all of that, but I still have to figure things out. So kudos to those women who carried the torch. And, you know, that's why I think they pulled up too, like Breonna Stewart and Candace Parker. They wanted to, they know it's important, man, for the next generation. And to get Juju, I think for us, it showed, like, hey, I know everybody is drawn by the guys in this story, but hey, Juju is a dog, man. She is a hooper. She is, like, see her in person hoop. It's just so cool. Like Corey said, the respect for women's basketball just catapults. And I mean, we're in March Madness right now, man. You got to tune in. I just saw last night Jazzy Davison at USC balling. I'm like, man, she was in the McDonald's game. Wait till her and Juju come together. It's so much to see on the girls' side, man. So it's dope. I think it's great stuff for girls basketball. And I'm going to bring up the one-on-ones they're doing on Unrivaled. Man, they need to adopt that in the NBA. They need to stop playing and adopt that, man. So
absolutely.
Sounds like we got a little bit of carryover, man. We might have to you know what I'm saying, expand the meal ticket, call this the buffet line, man. So, you know.
Absolutely,
real quick to your point, Carlton, man. I was really, really pleased with the way that you guys laid out the story for Kiki Rice. And if people are paying attention to what she's doing right now, she's part of, you know, that number one ranked or number one seeded UCLA team. You know what I'm saying? And first I said to myself, I don't even know who she was. And then I see the kind of person that she was striving to be in your documentary. is the same person right now that can arguably lead her team to a Final Four. And she may not post up Paul Pierce kind of numbers because she's playing with a very talented team. But to that point, and going all the way back to what we were talking about, Sebastian Telfair, I think when they get on a professional level, and it's all about how, you got to score points, you got to, be this all-star, everything, and like the dynamics, the leadership, the qualities, and all of that stuff. Sometimes it takes something like what this documentary was able to showcase and show, the coaches and what they're asking of their athletes, to extrapolate from them, and to do that in a showcase centered game where it matters for the next 4 to 8 years of their life, and to execute it at a high level for only, all but 40 minutes at most. To me, I find that to be remarkable. And, Corey, Carlton, I know Shaw's going to speak to this, man, but you guys did such an absolutely fantabulous job of capturing it. I know there was so much more that you wanted to put it in there, but you guys have made this must see for people who really want to truly appreciate the culture of basketball, not from just the professional level, but from the startup level, the foundational level. And I think that's where it starts. That's where it begins. Like, if you really want to appreciate what matters to kids when they're playing this game and why they continue to play this game, you guys are the starting point. We appreciate you guys so much for putting your heart and soul into this, because we see it in every single minute captured in this documentary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing to hear. We're glad that it connects. And we fought so hard to get the integrity of the film to be in line of what we believe and what we would want to see as sports fans. We're sports fanatics, man, mixed with, cinephiles obsessed with movies. And so to bring it all together, I really hope that people have the same experience that you guys have had, because I think it's a little bit there for everybody in this film, in this story.
Yeah. Well, we cannot wait to see what you all do next. I hope we're all friends here now. We're bros, man. You go ahead and send me the unedited version, man. I'll watch all 5 hours, 10 hours, whatever you got.
You want the 3-hour version? Come on, man.
Send it on in, man. Send it on in, brother.
Once again, we'd like to thank Corey Colvin and Carlton Sabbs for joining us. The documentary is called Meal Ticket, covering the history of the McDonald's All-American game. You can find it exclusively on Prime Video. Gentlemen, once again, man, we thank you so much for spending a little bit of FaceTime with the Baseline. We definitely look forward to more projects that you guys have in store. But more importantly, thank you again for blessing our listeners with a better understanding of why this was such an important visionary project to see through fruition, man. Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You've earned this. Now it's time to embark on your own personal adventure. Book your vacation with Exquisite Travel and Tours today. Explore the world and discover yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. I mean, what a great conversation that we were able to have with two up-and-coming visionaries, two talented brothers from the Chi. And listen, man, we grew up in the hip-hop culture. Chi has been known to have storytellers. They've been known to have people who embrace their environment and community, and they tell things in such a way that it almost makes you feel like you were part of their neighborhood, you were part of their environment. And this was no different. And it's just such an excellent collaboration by Corey and Carlton as far as what they were able to do, how they were able to manage that. And kudos, to Rock Nation, and kudos to Amazon Prime for allowing them the space and the ability to have that creativity be put on full display. They went all out on this documentary. It's probably one of the best documentaries I've come across. This tells a basketball tale, but more importantly, tells the tale of the of the inner city aspirations and dreams that we all have, whether you're a basketball fan or not.
Yeah. And again, I wanted to do shout out again, Prime, and those two gentlemen. They were very gracious with their time. We were supposed to have a much shorter interview window, but the conversation was so organic and it was just popping. We were feeding off their energy, them feeding off of ours, as we were all just kind of in the hoops kind of culture, right? We were just enjoying reminiscing and understanding the lore and what the McDonald's All-American game truly means, not only to the players, but even us as fans and consumers of the game of basketball. I really enjoyed that. And we don't often get the opportunities to spend as much time diving into the inner workings of such a process. So again, I got to give those two guys and obviously the team Prime so much credit for producing this and making this happen, and so that we as basketball lovers and consumers can go back there and review this. And it's something I would watch again, because I think there's Easter eggs here that we probably didn't see and things that we could all pick up on here as basketball consumers and fans.
Yeah, they did such an excellent job of balancing, allowing the people that they interviewed to help tell the story, but they curated it in a way so that we could follow along. Because again, it's not easy to amass almost 40 plus years, almost 50 years of history, of talent, of game, of, what I'm saying? Like, that's a lot, man. Like, I can understand why people can be picky about Questlove and, what he tried to do in curating, 50 years of hip hop. And I can only imagine what the expectations were for both Corey and Carlton to help successfully tell a tale about a game that originally started as just a means to help showcase, some of the best players in high school, has now amassed itself to be part of the fabric in telling the proper tale about the potential of the faces of professional sports and college sports respectively, and what it means to some of these kids and what it means for them to be, called out in the same breath as a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or a LeBron James, right? Like, it's just awesome, man. And they figured out a way to do that in an hour and 30 minutes, which we were all saying, man, oh man, you could have done this. This could have been a 3-hour movie, and it would have still felt like an hour and 30 minutes because of just the way that it was laid out, man. I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. They did such an excellent job, because even myself, I didn't truly understand and appreciate the importance of the McDonald's All-American game. And maybe in some respects, a lot of that is lost in the idea of it being so important that they make it to the NBA. But for these kids, that's their first step. Their first step of acknowledging where they are in this thread is by them making it to this point. And then to have that be displayed and laid out, man, it was just an awesome experience. And I'm glad that they were on our show to help tell that tale, as well as they showed it to us and how they directed this documentary.
Yeah, I think they allowed the story to unfold. Like, I'm sure they had a plan going in, but as players were beginning to share their own anecdotes and their stories of lore, like, they didn't say, oh, well, it has to be this way. This is what we have kind of going on. No, they let, it kind of be more organic. And while they did have certain players that they needed, in essence, to cover, they were upfront about that, even with McDonald's and others, but was still, again, allowed a story to be super organic. And you can tell that that's how they operate just by alluding to how the conversation that we had with them, right? It just was an organic situation where we could just kind of feed and vibe and allow the conversation to go where it ultimately needed to, and learning so much about that. And I meant what I said earlier, like, most documentaries are meant to give you some sort of information and to teach you something. And a lot of times from the basketball space, maybe I don't always get that. I got something out of this for sure. And again, there's more meat on the bone here too, as a lot of stuff was left off the cutting room floor, so to speak. So kudos to those gents, bro. Like I said, I cannot wait to see what they do next and how the baseline can be a part of that, or the 19 Media Group can be a part of that. Because again, these are, like you said, visionary storytellers who just understand what it means to allow the story to be told and not have to fit into a certain level of a box, which I can very much appreciate.
Absolutely. Like I said, man, they understood the assignment. They understood the assignment. Once again, man, we'd like to thank our guests, Corey Colvin and also Carlton Staub, for joining us here and having that conversation. And we also like to thank Amazon Prime and Rock Nation for once again allowing us the ability to have a platform to be able to help tell a very important part of the basketball culture. And again, we appreciate it, and we would encourage anyone to take the opportunity and time, go to Amazon Prime. If you have an Amazon Prime account, lock in and catch Meal Ticket. You will not be disappointed. I think you will have a hell of a good time, not only understanding what the culture represents, but also what the McDonald's All-American game is all about and why it matters so much to some of the young kids, even in today's climate of basketball. Once again, for the Baseline, Cal Lee, Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys. We do. And we'll catch up with you next time.